Starting with the name of Almighty Allah. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to my video tutorial. This is Muhammad Imtiaz bin Farooq Bhuiya, and today I will talk about assurance from knowledge level. Now, in 3 level, knowledge, application and advanced stage, this assurance and the knowledge from this assurance will be needed. In knowledge level you will get assurance, in application level you will get audit and assurance, and in advanced stage you will get advanced audit and assurance. And obviously in case study you will have to show the aggregated knowledge from previous 3 level. Now, as the assurance is a very fundamental subject and you guys are also from knowledge level, but although you have to know some knowledge, you have to possess some knowledge from following BSA, Bangladesh Standard of Auditing. Here I make some list by the basis of my experience from last 3 to 4 session. BSA 200, 230, 300, 350, 320, 500, 505, 520, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. Actually this bunch of 500 list BSA is very important, and here is 700, the auditor's report of financial statement. Now let's move on. Now, as you know, our ICAB is following the manual from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales, ICAEW, commonly known as. This manual is from 2009, but ICAEW has already updated their manual. I think our ICAB is yet to be updated. Now, as the formal manual is from 2009, this screenshot was taken from 2009's manual. This is the table of content of your assurance book. Here you will get 16 chapters total, and today we will talk about the first chapter, the concept and need for assurance. So there is a reason that we don't call this a book, we call it as a manual, because the manual is self-explanatory. When you are reading a manual you will get the guideline, which is not available in books. So try to use this manual as manual, don't take it as a book. This is my first request to all of you. Now, in the beginning of the manual the approach is given, and where you will focus, so the essential point is also given. For the chapter 1, the given approach is, if you can follow my slide, make sure you understand the assurance engagement and the level of assurance, and you will have to be familiar with the term true and fair, and you will have to attempt the interactive and self-test question. This is my request to you. Don't miss any single interactive question or any single self-test before going to the exam hall. Complete all the interactive question and all the self-test question to pass your exam, because by solving those interactive question and self-test question you can judge yourself. And the essential point from this first chapter will be the key elements of assurance engagement, the reasonable and limited assurance, and the purpose of audit, and the expectation gap, and some limitation of assurance, and so on and so forth. So let's get started. Now, at the very beginning of your chapter you will get the learning objective. When I was a student of knowledge level, I find that many of my friends are complaining that we studied a lot, we studied from first to last, but at the end we are not finding what we have learned. We are not finding ourselves in the manual. This is because you guys are not focusing on the objectives. You are starting this chapter without the knowing what you are going to learn from this chapter. So my first request is, get your objective fixed. Try to know first what you are going to learn, then you start to learn. So the learning objectives is, understand the concept of assurance and recognizing the criteria about the subject matter, different level of assurance, which is also given in the approach, if you can remember. Understanding the meaning of a true and fair view. Please focus on this, a true and fair view, not the true and fair view. Understanding the need for professional accountant to carry the assurance work. Understanding why user desire assurance report. and compare the function and responsibility, and about the expectation gap, and identify how this expectation gap can be overcome. Now I will use this screen as a checklist after completing this chapter. Now let's move on. Now the very basic definition of assurance. Please try to understand the definition, not to memorize, because understanding this definition will help you throughout your next 3 level. You will have to understand every word which is given in this definition. It is said that understanding a definition will make your next move very smoothly. Now the definition, formal definition, bookish definition of assurance is: an assurance engagement is one in which a practitioner expresses a conclusion. Now the practitioner express a conclusion which is designed to enhance the degree of confidence of the intended user. Practitioner will express a conclusion which will increase the confidence of intended user, not the responsible party. Practitioner will express something for the intended users, not for the responsible party. And about the outcome or the evaluation or measurement of a subject criteria or subject matter, practitioner will express his conclusion for the intended user, not for the responsible party, about the evaluation of a subject matter. So the subject matter is something which is going to be evaluated by the practitioner. And against criteria, practitioner will evaluate the subject matter against criteria. So the criteria is maybe some rules and regulation or something. Now from this definition you will get the key point of assurance. What are those? You can see that there are some party limited. The first party is the practitioner, second one is the intended user, third one is responsible party. So in an assurance engagement there are 3 parties involved, and the subject matter which is going to be evaluated can be a data, can be a system, or can be a behavior. And against the criteria, as I have told, the criteria can be your accounting standard, criteria can be corporate governance, or any fixed law. The practitioner will express conclusion. This conclusion in assurance, in our book, it will be a written report in an appropriate form, and this report will be given by practitioner, which will be backed by sufficient appropriate evidence, which will be discussed in BSA 500 obviously. So if you learn the definition, if you understand the definition, the key elements and the party and many other things will be clear to you. Now let's move on. This assurance which we are talking about can be 2 types: reasonable assurance, limited assurance. Now focus here. This is not an absolute assurance engagement. No one can give an absolute assurance engagement. At best it can be reasonable. In your book you will have this screen. The reasonable and the limited assurance can be divided by the basis of evidence collection and the conclusion given. If the evidence is sufficient and appropriate and the conclusion is positive, then the engagement, we can call it a reasonable assurance. So for reasonable assurance, the evidence is sufficient and appropriate, and for limited, the level of sufficient and appropriate is in lower level and the conclusion is negative. So when the auditor is expressing his opinion, there is some legal language. This could be like this. Please focus. In my opinion, the statement by the chairman regarding X is reasonable. This is a direct sentence. This is the positive sentence. Here it is saying that the statement by the chairman regarding X is reasonable. It is direct. It is reasonable. This line can also be alternatively can be saying this way: in the course of my seeking evidence about the statement by the chairman, nothing has come to my attention indicating that the statement is not reasonable. This is indirect sentence. Here is a double negative, nothing, not. The common person will say that this line and this line is same, there is no difference, but yes, there is a scope of difference. Nothing has come to my attention indicating that statement is not reasonable. It means that there could be something which is not reasonable but it didn't come to my attention. So there is a scope of limitation. So there is a something fish is going on. So this alternative statement, which is in indirect form, is example of limited assurance, and this is a direct one. This is an example of reasonable assurance. So moving on, audit is one of the main assurance service which we have provided. Now in your manual you will not find any definition of audit. Rather you will find the objective of audit. This definition I have collected from American Accounting Association. If you read the objective of an audit, you will get all the elements of assurance. All the elements from the definition of assurance is available in here. As we can see, the objective of an audit of financial statement is to enable the auditor, here the auditor is practitioner, to express an opinion whether the financial statement is suitable subject matter, whether the financial statement are prepared in all material aspects in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework. So as you can see, the objective of audit presents all the key elements from the definition of assurance. So moving on to the next one is true and fair view. If you can remember, a true and fair view, not the true and fair view, because a true and fair view is a qualitative term, is not fixed. You cannot put the before this concept. The true, what we understand, is not false, is same here. True is factual, which confirms the reality, which confirms the required standards of law. And fair, on the other hand, is a qualitative term. It's means it's free from discrimination and free from bias and all that. So moving on to the next, the practitioner which we are talking about is called auditor if it's an audit engagement. In our Bangladesh, the Company Act 1994 sets out some rules about who can be an auditor or who cannot be an auditor. The Company Act 1994 also sets out factors which make a person ineligible for being an company auditor. For example, these following persons cannot be an auditor for a company: an officer or employee of a company, a partner or a employee of any officer, employee to the company, a person who is in loan exceeding taka 1000, a person who is a director or managing agent of a company, a person who is a director or holder of share exceeding 5% of the subscribed capital. So these persons are not eligible for being an auditor of a company. Now, why is assurance is so important? We are talking about these assurance things. Why is needed? Why it is so important? The importance of assurance can be understood if we follow these points. Those can be also called the benefit of assurance. It's an independent professional verification which gives additional confidence to the users. It enhances the degree of information. It enhances the credibility of information. And as it is independent, it might prevent the error. It's make people cautious and careful about their error in subject matter. The existence of an assurance report will draw attention to the deficiency, and so on and so forth. And the vice versa, there are also have some limitation from this assurance. As I have told earlier, no assurance is absolute assurance. Assurance can be either reasonable or limited. So the question may be raised: why there is no absolute assurance? Because of the limitation. And what are those? The limitation of assurance services, testing is used here. We use a lot of sample. There are some inherent limitation of accounting. Audit evidence is persuasive rather than conclusive. Audit evidence pursue one to another, refer to one to another, rather concluding the thing. Client can do fraud, can collude a fraud. You will not find their fraud if they are all involving in a fraud. Assurance provision can be subjective and professional judgment is using here. Assurance provider rely on responsible party and it is tough to provide correct information, and there are some estimates in our accounting, and the nature of assurance report might itself be limiting. So for all those limitations, the assurance service cannot be an absolute, and for this reason the expectation gap between the user and the practitioner is created. We'll learn that in the next slide. The next topic is expectation gap. Now this concept is really important for your assurance and in your audit and assurance and in your next advanced audit and assurance subject, because the understanding this concept is important. The assurance expectation gap itself is, the name itself is self-explanatory. The expectation gap of user and the expectation gap of a practitioner. You will learn more about this expectation gap in chapter 4, I think. And the basic concept of expectation gap is what the assurance provider understand he is doing and what the user of the information believes he is doing. The gap between these two is called expectation gap. You will learn more about this expectation gap in chapter 4 in my next video blog. And here I have prepared for you the difference between assurance and audit. This difference is not available in your manual, and I think up to this point the difference between these two is easily understandable. The assurance, the audit is one type of assurance. So by only that point of view, I have found 6 topic. The engagement type. All assurance engagement are not audit engagement, but all audit engagement are assurance engagement. The level of assurance is the reasonable or limited for assurance, and the audit is reasonable assurance. The conducting party is, for assurance it is external and independent. For audit it can be both internal and external parties, internal audit or external audit. The expression of opinion is positive or negative in assurance. The expression of audit is always positive. The time and resource required for assurance engagement, but the time and resource required for audit engagement is higher. The type of report, the report can be standard, customized depending on the engagement, and it is for audit it is always prescribed in a form. Now this is actually more of it of your chapter. Now in the end of your chapter you will find the summary of this chapter for whole in your manual. I will request to crosscast the summary with your learnings. As you can see, the summary is telling you, giving you the definition, we have covered it. It is providing you the key elements, 5 key elements, we have covered it. And it is providing you the level of assurance, yes, we have done it. It is providing you some benefits and some limitation, yes, we have done all it. So now let's move on to the first, the checklist. Understand the concept of assurance. We did, yes, we did it. Recognize the criteria, we did that. Recognize the subject matter, we did that. Understand the different level of assurance, we did that. A true and fair view, we did that. Understand the need for professional accountant to carry out the public interest, done with it. Understand why user desire assurance report and recognize example of the benefits gained from them. Compare the function and responsibility of the different party involved in an assurance engagement. Understand the issue which can lead the gaps, and identifying this expectation gap, how it can be overcome. Yes, we did that. So this is more of it, more or less this is all. In my next video tutorial we will talk about I'll talk about process of assurance, and I will focus on obtaining engagement. So till then, thanks for watching. This was Imtiaz bin Farooq.